Hello everybody, this is Stephen Whitfield, a drilling contractor here at the 2023 IADC Drilling Onshore Conference in Houston, Texas. And with me right now is Jamie Sheets, Global Manager APM Drilling at Ensign. We're going to talk a little bit about engine management. Mr. Sheets was part of a panel here at this conference that sort of dealt with sort of the things that we're seeing with engine management and where the new frontiers are going to be with that. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question would be about sort of emissions. So when we're talking about engine management, we're obviously talking about emissions, right? And just sort of how we're going to reduce emissions, what kind of efficiencies are we going to see. So what do you think are some of the key things that we need to be looking at in terms of reducing emissions from the well site? What are some of the technologies that you see as the key enablers?
So I think there's a multi-step program here. The first one being one of the simpler solutions, which we can almost all immediately act on today, and that's looking at the engine loads that we have at the well site. We can drive up engine efficiencies, and essentially by doing that, we're going to enable us to have better fuel consumption. We're going to reduce our fuel consumption through that efficiency. We can strategize how many engines that we need during various intervals across the well. And by coming up with some of these plans, it makes it much easier to run those emissions down. Several years ago, I did something very similar. We saw a 20% reduction, and this was when it was still very fresh. Now we're doing a whole lot more in terms of optimization. Next steps beyond that, there's additional technologies. We can start to move more towards automation and that kind of intelligence associated with that engine optimization. But at the same time, I'm still a big fan of keeping the human in the loop. And so the human is somebody that can execute that plan. He's the one that has the knowledge behind it. He knows what's going on the well site, and we can utilize that guy as basically our person to execute what we plan and give to them. Beyond that, there's additional technologies. There's battery energy storage systems that's going to really help out with peak shavings. That's going to make it to where we don't have to worry as much about the, say, yo-yo effect, I want to say, with load distribution, where we're constantly needing a large amount of power and then a short amount of power. The battery energy storage system helps with those peak shavings. There's lots of fuel additives that we can get to, and then one of the better designs is going to be the highline power wherever that's available, pretty much switching to where we're on grid versus doing a lot of the work ourselves.
So let me bring up a point you just made here about automation and being a fan of the human in the loop. Why are you a fan of the human in the loop when it comes to engine optimization? What is it about having people in place that you think is important?
So while drilling the well, there's a whole lot of different factors that may not be possible to program into something that's an autonomous system. I used an example where we're tripping out of the hole and there could be tight spots throughout the well bore. An automation system may not account for those tight spots where we might need to run additional fluid and pump more. So you'd have an extra mud pump, you'd have a higher demand for engine count. But if you're running a fully autonomous system, at that point you could be looking at a reduced engine count where somebody's going to have to go flip another one on or take another one off. So you're really causing a lot of up and down time in terms of how many pumps you're running and how many engines you need.
So lastly, we'll just go with another kind of wider one here about just sort of when people are looking into starting their own energy efficiency journey. I mean, obviously you have experience with this. What would you say to anyone that's looking to make their way into here? What are some key things they need to know?
Usually the first step in the journey is always going to be the data capture and collection. So that's where your first challenge is going to be. Not all the time are you going to see constant connectivity. You might have some connectivity challenges because rigs aren't always, very local. So some of those remote challenges can be a hurdle, but start capturing the data. Get familiar with, engine efficiency and really what those power curves look like and those efficiency curves. And then from that point, you can start to combine a whole lot more information. Look at everything that's available to you and try to find ways to relate that information. In doing so, that's where you can finally take those steps into optimizing well count by rig activity or things that are even more influential to the well.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of this perspective here on emissions and engine management and all that. It's great to hear from you, so thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
And thank you for visiting Drilling Contractor.